The alarm clock's piercing beep cut through the darkness at 4:47 a.m., 3 minutes before it was supposed to ring. Sarah Chen didn't wait for the snooze. Her hand shot out, silencing it with the practiced speed of someone who couldn't afford to waste even those 3 minutes. She lay there for exactly 5 seconds, eyes open, staring at the water-stained ceiling of the apartment. 5 seconds to remember where she was, who she was, and what the day ahead demanded. Then she moved. The apartment's heating had been temperamental for months, but calling the landlord meant risking attention she couldn't afford. So she wore socks to bed and kept a space heater running in Mia's room, the only room that mattered. Sarah moved through the apartment like a ghost, navigating the worn floorboards without sound, making coffee without clanking mugs, existing in the margins of noise so her daughter could sleep those precious extra minutes. The kitchen was barely a kitchen, a 2-burner stove where only 1 burner worked, a refrigerator that hummed too loud and froze everything in the back, a sink with a slow leak she'd learned to live with. She filled the coffee maker with water, counting out grounds with the precision of someone who knew exactly how many days were left in the canister. 14 more mornings. Then she'd have to choose between coffee and something else. There was always something else. While the coffee brewed, she checked her phone. 3% battery. The charger cable was fraying at both ends, held together with electrical tape, and it only worked if you angled it just right. She positioned it carefully, watching until the charging symbol appeared. Then turned her attention to the stack of mail on the counter. Bills, all bills. Electric, water, internet. She couldn't afford to lose because Mia needed it for school. And at the bottom, the one she'd been avoiding for 2 weeks, the notice from Mia's school about the field trip. $45 for a day at the Marine Biology Center. $45 that might as well have been $400. The coffee maker sputtered its final drops. Sarah poured it into a mug with a chipped handle, added the powdered creamer that had replaced real milk weeks ago, and wrapped both hands around the warmth. This was her moment. 6 minutes before she had to start getting ready for work. 6 minutes to stand in the quiet and pretend the day ahead wasn't already exhausting her. She thought about the field trip notice. Mia hadn't mentioned it yet. Probably because she already knew the answer. 8 years old, and already learning to manage her own disappointments, to calculate which requests were worth making. That awareness, that premature understanding of scarcity, was the thing that hurt most. More than the past due notices, more than the broken washing machine, more than the fact that she'd worn the same 3 work shirts in rotation for so long that the fabric had gone thin at the elbows. By the time she was dressed, Mia's alarm was going off. Sarah had breakfast ready before her daughter emerged. Oatmeal with a careful drizzle of honey to make it special. A glass of the milk Sarah had watered down just enough to stretch it 3 more days. Mia appeared in the doorway, small for 8, dark hair standing up in sleep-wild angles. Her eyes were still half closed. But she smiled when she saw the bowl waiting for her. "Morning, baby," Sarah said, keeping her voice soft. "Morning, Mama." Mia climbed onto the chair, feet dangling above the floor. She ate slowly, methodically, the way kids do when they're not quite awake yet. Sarah watched her, memorizing the moment like she did every morning. This was what mattered. This was what every exhausting hour, every skipped meal, every night on the broken couch was for. As long as Mia was fed, clothed, safe, and didn't know how close they were to losing it all, Sarah could keep going. "School today?" Mia asked, which was their game. "School today," Sarah confirmed. "What are you learning about?" "Oceans." Mia's face brightened. "Ms. Rodriguez said we're going to learn about tide pools and hermit crabs and sea stars that can grow their arms back if they lose them." "That's amazing." "Yeah." Mia took another bite, then added carefully. She said there's a field trip to see real tide pools. There it was. Sarah felt her chest tighten. When? Next month. But it's okay if we can't go. Emma said her mom can't afford it either. The casual way she said it, the easy acceptance, was worse than any tantrum would have been. Sarah wanted to tell her yes, wanted to promise her the field trip and everything else she deserved. But the numbers didn't change, just because you wanted them to. Let me see what I can do, Sarah said, which was what she always said. Not a promise, but not a no. A space between hope and disappointment where both of them could live for a little while longer. They finished breakfast in comfortable silence. Sarah packed Mia's lunch, peanut butter sandwich, apple slices, crackers, a juice box, and wrote a note on the napkin like she did every day. You're amazing. Love, Mama. Small words that cost nothing but meant everything. The walk to school was 12 minutes. They couldn't afford the car insurance anymore, so Sarah had sold the car 6 months ago. She told Mia it was because walking was healthier. Mia had nodded and never questioned it, which meant she understood the real reason without being told. At the school gates, Mia hugged her hard around the waist. Love you, Mama. Love you more, baby. Have a good day. Sarah watched her daughter run toward the entrance until she disappeared through the doors. Then she turned and started the 40-minute walk to work. The morning shift at Dominic's was brutal. Breakfast crowd, impatient and demanding, leaving tips that barely made the effort worth it. But Sarah had learned to smile through it, to move efficiently between tables, to anticipate needs before they were voiced. By noon, her feet ached, and her face hurt from smiling. Her tips for the day totaled $37, which was below average. After dinner, homework, bath time, and bedtime stories, Sarah finally collapsed on the couch. It was past 9, and she had to be up again in less than 8 hours. Her body ached everywhere. She pulled out her phone and scrolled mindlessly through social media, watching other people's lives scroll past. Vacation photos, restaurant meals, kids in new clothes. She didn't feel jealous exactly, just tired. Tired of fighting so hard for so little. A notification popped up, an estate sale listing in a local buy-sell trade group. She almost scrolled past it, but something made her click. Estate sale. Everything must go. Maritime collector's estate. Antiques, nautical items, books, furniture. Saturday, 7 a.m. Cash only. She stared at the address. It was on the other side of the county, a 40-minute bus ride she couldn't really afford. But estate sales sometimes had cheap things, useful things. She'd found Mia's winter coat at one last year for $8. She saved the listing and set an alarm for Saturday morning. It was probably nothing. But Mia's question echoed in her mind. Do you think we'll ever get lucky like that? Probably not. But maybe it was worth looking. Saturday morning arrived cold and gray. Sarah left Mia sleeping, arranged with Mrs. Kowalski to check on her, and caught the first bus heading east. $7 round trip. $7 that could buy milk, bread, a can of tuna. But $7 that might lead to something useful. The estate sale was at the end of a long driveway that curved through oak trees. The house was old, probably beautiful once, but now it sagged with neglect. There were already a dozen people waiting when Sarah arrived. Professional resellers with their phones out, antique dealers in expensive casual clothes, collectors with that sharp-eyed focus. And then there was Sarah, in her worn jeans and thin jacket, clutching $35 in cash from her tip jar. Knowing she probably didn't belong here, but unable to walk away from the possibility. The doors opened at 7:30. The crowd moved with practiced efficiency, spreading through the house like water finding cracks. Sarah stayed near the back, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of stuff. Ship models in glass cases, brass instruments, maps with handwritten notes, books about navigation. Everything was priced with little white tags that made Sarah's stomach drop. In the back bedroom, away from the main crowd, Sarah found what looked like the leftovers: water-damaged paperbacks, mismatched china, a broken lamp, and in the corner, covered with a dusty tarp, something large and irregular. Curiosity made her lift the edge of the tarp. Underneath was a model ship, but not like the pristine ones in the front rooms. This one looked like it had been through a war and lost. The hull was battered and scarred, listing to one side. The masts were broken stumps. Pieces of the deck had fallen away. It looked less like a model and more like something that had actually been pulled from the ocean floor. There was a tag attached to the base. $850. Sarah almost laughed. $850 for something that looked like it belonged in a dumpster. She was about to drop the tarp and leave when she noticed something else. The wood had an odd quality to it. Parts of it seemed to catch the light strangely, glowing with an amber warmth. She looked closer. What she'd thought was regular wood damage wasn't wood at all. Running through the hull in irregular veins was something that looked like amber. Not paint or stain, but actual amber. Cloudy and dark with age, embedded in the structure itself like fossilized honey. She ran her finger along one of the amber sections. It was cool and smooth, and underneath the layers of grime, she could see shapes. Small shadows suspended in the golden material. "You interested in that one?" Sarah jumped. The elderly woman from the checkout had appeared behind her. "Oh, I was just looking," Sarah said quickly, dropping the tarp. "That's the Galleon, Captain Emery's pride and joy." The woman's voice was dry and rasping. "He bought it at auction 30 years ago. Thought he'd gotten the deal of the century. $850, Sarah heard herself say. "For that?" The woman's mouth twitched into something that might have been a smile. "It's supposed to be historically significant. The amber, you see. Very rare. Captain Emery had it appraised once. They told him it was worth something, but he never sold it." "Did he retire?" "He died last month, 93 years old, sitting in his chair, looking at his ship collection." The woman looked at the tarp. "His kids just want it gone. This one's been sitting here all week. No one wants a broken ship full of weird amber." Sarah should have walked away. Instead, she heard herself ask, "How much would you take for it?" The woman studied her. $850 is already rock bottom. Captain Emery paid $12,000 for it in '94. "I have $35. The words hung between them, ridiculous and impossible. The woman should have laughed her out of the house. Instead, she tilted her head, considering. "You got kids?" The question caught Sarah off guard. "A daughter." "She's 8. "What's her name?" "Mia." The woman was quiet for a long moment, looking at Sarah like every struggle and fear and desperate hope was visible on the surface. Then she sighed. "Captain Emery's daughter didn't visit him once in the last 5 years. She told me to get whatever I could for the junk and throw away the rest." The woman looked at the tarp. "This is junk to her." "I can't afford $800, Sarah said quietly. "I can see that." The woman walked to the model ship and pulled the tarp completely off. "Captain Emery used to tell stories about this ship. Said it was built with amber from the Baltic coast, that it had sailed during some important expedition in the 1700s. Said it had sunk and been recovered. That the amber had preserved things that would have been lost otherwise. Was it true? Who knows? Captain Emery liked his stories better than his facts." She ran her hand along the scarred hull. "But I'll tell you what I do know. He loved this ship. He used to sit with it in the evenings, just looking at it, like it was telling him secrets." The woman turned to face her. "Tell you what, give me what you have. All of it. And take the damn ship. Maybe it'll tell you secrets too." Sarah's hand tightened around the cash in her pocket. $35. 3 days of tips. Money she'd planned to use for Mia's field trip, for groceries, for the electric bill. "I don't even know what I'd do with it," she said. Neither did the captain, really. He just liked having it. The woman's expression softened slightly. "Look, I've been doing estate sales for 35 years. I can tell the difference between people who want things and people who need them. You got the look of someone who needs something to go right. What if it's not worth anything? Then you'll have spent $35 on the world's ugliest decoration. But what if it is? What if it is?" The same question Mia had asked. Sarah pulled the bills from her pocket and counted them out into the woman's weathered hand. $27.35. Everything she had. The woman took it without counting. "There's a dolly by the back door. You'll need it to get this thing to wherever you're going." "Thank you," Sarah said. "Don't thank me yet. You might curse me when you realize what you've done." The woman started to walk away, then turned back. "One more thing. Captain Emery used to say the amber had things in it. Said if you looked close enough, held it up to the light just right, you could see them. He thought they were important, but he never could prove it. Maybe you'll have better luck." Sarah was left alone with her purchase. A broken ship that leaned drunkenly to one side, its amber-veined hull catching the weak morning light. $850 worth of someone else's treasure, bought for $35 by a woman who couldn't afford bread. She'd just spent Mia's field trip money on a broken toy boat. She'd just spent their grocery budget on a stranger's story. The practical part of her brain screamed that she'd been foolish, reckless, stupid. But another part, quieter and more desperate, whispered that maybe this was the luck Mia had asked about. Or maybe it was just $35 she could never get back. Getting the ship home was an exercise in humiliation. The model was heavier than it looked, and maneuvering it onto the bus required the driver's reluctant assistance and the annoyed glares of other passengers. She felt their judgment like a weight. Saw it in their expressions, in the way they looked at her worn clothes and the ridiculous model ship. By the time she got off at her stop, her arms ached and her face burned with embarrassment. Mrs. Kowalski was on her porch when Sarah finally reached her building, wrestling the ship off the dolly. "Don't ask," Sarah said preemptively. "Wasn't going to." Mrs. Kowalski shifted in her chair. "Mia had breakfast. She's inside drawing." Inside the apartment, Mia looked up from her coloring book, her eyes widening as Sarah maneuvered the model through the door. "Mama, what is that?" "It's a ship," Sarah said. "I bought it at an estate sale." Mia came closer, circling the model. "It's broken." "I know. Why did you buy a broken ship?" It was a fair question. Sarah didn't have a fair answer. "Because maybe it's not as broken as it looks. See this?" She pointed to one of the amber sections. "This is amber. It's like fossilized tree sap from millions of years ago. Sometimes it has things trapped inside it, like insects or leaves." Mia leaned closer. "I don't see anything." "You have to look really carefully, in the right light." They spent the next few minutes examining the ship, Mia's small fingers tracing the amber veins, while Sarah tried not to think about the $35 she'd never see again. The model looked even worse in the harsh fluorescent light. Every crack, every broken piece, every flaw was magnified. It took up half their living room, smelling faintly of decay and old wood. "Can we fix it?" Mia asked. "I don't know, baby. If we fix it, will it be worth a lot of money?" The question hit Sarah like a punch. Of course, that's what Mia was thinking. "Maybe," Sarah said, because she couldn't bring herself to say no. Mia nodded seriously. "Ms. Rodriguez says that scientists study really old things to learn about the past. Maybe scientists would want this?" "Maybe," Sarah said again, though the word felt increasingly hollow. That night, after Mia was asleep, Sarah sat on the couch and stared at the model. In the dim lamp light, the amber sections seemed to glow from within. She remembered what the estate sale woman had said. Captain Emery used to say the amber had things in it. Sarah got up and grabbed her phone, turning on the flashlight. She held it up to different sections of the ship, watching how the light penetrated the amber. Most of it looked cloudy, dark, imperfect. But in one section, near what would have been the waterline, something caught her attention. There was a shape inside the amber, not a bubble, not an imperfection. Something with definition, with edges. She moved closer, squinting. It looked almost like... But that was impossible. She pulled back, convinced her desperation was making her see things that weren't there. Tomorrow she'd have to figure out what to do with this ship. Maybe she could resell it, recoup some of her money. But tonight, Sarah let herself imagine. Just for a moment. What if the old captain had been right? What if there was something inside the amber? What if, against all odds, she'd accidentally stumbled onto something valuable? The ship sat in the darkness, silent and broken, keeping whatever secrets it held locked in ancient amber, waiting for someone desperate enough and foolish enough to look closer. Sunday morning brought no revelations, only the same apartment, the same problems, and a large, broken ship taking up space she didn't have. Maya was already awake, sitting cross-legged in front of the model with a piece of toast. "Mama, did you know that amber can preserve things for millions of years?" Sarah sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Where'd you learn that?" "I looked it up on your phone. Sorry, I know I'm not supposed to use it without asking. But you were sleeping, and I wanted to know about amber." Mia took a bite of toast. "It says that scientists found a feather in amber once, and it was from a dinosaur, a real dinosaur feather, preserved perfectly." "That's interesting, baby." "And they found insects, like really old ones that don't exist anymore, and plants. And one time they found blood inside a mosquito that was inside amber, and they studied the blood to learn about ancient diseases." Sarah moved to the kitchen, starting coffee. "You've been doing a lot of research." "Ms. Rodriguez says research is how you learn things." Mia finally looked up. "Mama, what if our ship has important things in it? Like dinosaur feathers or ancient mosquitoes? I don't think this ship is that old, sweetheart. But what if? What if?" Those two words again, following Sarah like a ghost. "Tell you what," Sarah said. "After breakfast, we'll clean it up a little. See if we can figure out exactly what we have." Mia's face lit up. "Really? Really? But don't get your hopes up too high, okay? Sometimes old things are just old things." They spent the morning carefully cleaning the ship with damp cloths and gentle soap, removing layers of dust and grime. As the dirt came away, more of the amber revealed itself. It wasn't just in patches. It ran through the entire structure like veins. The amber and wood fused together in ways that shouldn't have been possible with 18th century construction techniques. In some sections, the amber was clear enough to see through. In others, it was dark and clouded. And in a few places, Sarah saw those shapes again. Definite shadows suspended in the golden material, too regular to be bubbles. Too complex to be simple imperfections. "Look at this one, Mama." Maya pointed to a section near the bow. "It looks like a leaf." Sarah moved closer. Mia was right. It did look like a leaf. Delicate and detailed, preserved in amber like an ancient photograph. By noon, the ship looked almost respectable. Still broken, still listing to one side, but clean enough to see what it actually was. A galleon, probably 18th century, with 3 broken masts, intricate railings mostly gone, and that strange amber-infused hull that caught the light in ways regular wood never could. Sarah took photos with her phone. She wasn't sure what she'd do with them, but it seemed important to document what they had. Sarah's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hi, is this Sarah Chen?" A woman's voice. Professional and slightly hurried. "Yes." "This is Melissa from Dominic's. Derek asked me to call you. He needs you to come in for a shift today." Maria called out sick. Sarah closed her eyes. Sunday was supposed to be her day off, but saying no meant fewer shifts next week. "What time?" she asked. 3 to closing. "I'll be there," Sarah said. After she hung up, Mia looked at her with understanding beyond her years. "You have to work?" "Yeah, baby. I'm sorry." At work, Sarah moved through her shift on autopilot. Thoughts split between the tables she served and the strange amber ship. Around 7, during a rare quiet moment, she pulled out her phone and did what she'd been avoiding. She searched. Amber ship model value. The results were mostly about amber jewelry, amber decorations. Nothing about ships. She tried again. Amber preserved in wood ship. This time, something caught her attention. A scholarly article from a university about unusual preservation techniques in maritime archaeology. She clicked through, skimming dense paragraphs until she reached a section about experimental ship construction. Rare examples of amber incorporation in vessel construction have been documented, primarily from Baltic regions, where amber was abundant and valued. These specimens often contain biological material preserved within the amber matrix, offering unique insights into historical ecosystems. Sarah's heart beat faster. She kept reading. Most such artifacts were lost or destroyed, making extant examples extremely valuable to researchers. However, authentication is complex, requiring specialized analysis. "Sarah, Table 12 needs you." She shoved the phone in her pocket and went back to work, but her mind was no longer present. It was home, circling that broken ship. The shift ended at 11. Sarah caught the last bus home, thinking about amber and ships and possibilities. Mrs. Kowalski was asleep in the chair when Sarah got home. Mia was curled up on the couch under a blanket. Sarah paid Mrs. Kowalski, carried Mia to bed, then stood in front of the ship. She pulled out her phone again and searched for that scholarly article. The article had a name at the bottom. Dr. Patricia Reeves, Maritime Archaeology Department, Coastal Research Institute. Sarah opened her email, staring at the blank message for a long moment. This was probably stupid. This was probably going to lead nowhere. But what if? She started typing. "Dear Dr. Reeves, my name is Sarah Chen. I recently purchased a model ship at an estate sale that appears to have amber incorporated into its construction. Based on your published research about historical maritime specimens, I'm wondering if this might be something worth examining. I realize this is an unusual request. I'm not a collector or researcher, just someone who saw something unusual and thought it might be important. If you have any interest, or if you could point me towards someone who might, I would be grateful for any guidance. Thank you for your time. Sarah Chen." She attached 3 of the best photos, then hit send before she could talk herself out of it. The email whooshed away into the void, probably to be deleted unread. Sarah collapsed onto the couch, not even bothering to pull out the bed. She was asleep in minutes. The response came Tuesday morning. Sarah was getting Mia ready for school when her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, assuming it was spam. But something made her look. From Patricia Reeves, a coastal research.doguont. Subject: RE, Amber Ship Inquiry. The message was short. "Ms. Chen, thank you for your email. The images you sent are intriguing. I'd like to see the specimen in person if possible. Would you be available for a brief meeting? I'm in Charleston through Friday for a conference. Dr. Patricia Reeves." Sarah read it 3 times, certain she was misunderstanding. A real scientist wanted to see her stupid broken ship. "Mama, we're going to be late." Sarah shoved the phone in her pocket, her mind racing. "Right. Sorry, baby. Let's go." At the gates, after Mia had hugged her and run inside, Sarah pulled out her phone and read the email again. It was still there, still real. She typed a response. "Dr. Reeves, thank you so much for responding. I would be very grateful for the opportunity to meet. I'm available any time that works for you. I live in North Charleston and can bring the specimen wherever you need. Sarah Chen." The response came before she made it home. "Would today work? I have time this afternoon. I can meet you at the Institute's satellite lab on Morrison Drive. Say 2 p.m. PR. Today. In 5 hours." She typed back, "Today works. I'll be there. Thank you." Then she called work and told them she needed the afternoon off for a family emergency. Derek was annoyed, but approved it. Sarah called Mrs. Kowalski, explained that she needed the car, promised to pay for gas. The old woman agreed reluctantly. Keys handed over with warnings about the temperamental transmission. Loading the ship into Mrs. Kowalski's car took 20 careful minutes. The model barely fit, wedged diagonally across the back seat. Sarah drove slowly, paranoid about every bump, following GPS directions to an address on the industrial side of the city. The Coastal Research Institute's satellite lab was housed in a converted warehouse. Corrugated metal walls, small windows, a cracked parking lot. Sarah double-checked the address 3 times, but the small sign by the door confirmed it. CRI Satellite Laboratory, Marine Archaeology Division. Sarah parked and sat for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel. This was real. She was actually doing this. Meeting a scientist, bringing a broken ship she'd bought with tip money. She almost drove away. Almost fled back to her apartment where she belonged. But Mia's voice echoed in her head. "Do you think we'll ever get lucky?" Sarah got out of the car. The door was locked, requiring her to press a buzzer. A voice crackled through the intercom. "Yes. Hi, I'm Sarah Chen. I have a 2 o'clock appointment with Dr. Reeves." A pause, then, "Come to the 2nd floor. Take the stairs on your left." The door buzzed. Sarah stepped into a space that smelled of chemicals and old paper and something briny. She found the stairs and climbed them. The 2nd floor opened into a large workspace filled with tables, equipment, and artifacts in various states of examination. Ship fragments, barnacle-encrusted metal, pieces of pottery. "Ms. Chen?" A woman detached from one of the workstations, pulling off her gloves. She was younger than Sarah expected. Maybe 40, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a careless ponytail. "I'm Patricia Reeves." "Thank you for meeting with me," Sarah said, suddenly aware of how out of place she looked. "Thank you for coming. You have the specimen?" "It's in my car. It's large." Dr. Reeves raised her eyebrows. "Let me help you bring it up." Together they carried the ship from the car, maneuvering it carefully up the stairs and setting it on a large examination table. Dr. Reeves circled the model slowly, her expression unreadable. She pulled a light closer, adjusted it, peered at different sections of the amber. The silence stretched until Sarah couldn't bear it. "I know it looks like a wreck," she said. "I bought it at an estate sale. The owner was a maritime collector and—" "Do you know its provenance?" Dr. Reeves interrupted, still studying the ship. "The woman at the estate sale said he bought it at auction 30 years ago. She said he thought it was historically significant, but never sold it." "Did she say where it came from originally?" "No. She just said something about the amber being rare." Dr. Reeves pulled on new gloves and very carefully touched one of the amber sections. "This isn't decorative amber. This is structural. The entire hull is reinforced with it." "Is that unusual?" "Unusual?" Dr. Reeves looked up, and for the first time, Sarah saw excitement in her eyes. "Ms. Chen, it's nearly impossible. Amber has been used decoratively in ship construction, yes. But integrated like this, as a functional component? I've only read about one example, and that specimen was lost in a museum fire in the 1960s. Sarah's heart started pounding. "So it's valuable. Let me be clear. I need to authenticate it, run tests, verify the age of both the wood and the amber. But if this is what I think it might be..." Dr. Reeves moved to a different section, focusing her light on one of the darker amber patches. "May I take a sample? A very small one?" Yes, of course." Dr. Reeves selected a tiny drill, explaining each step. The sample she extracted was barely visible, a fragment no larger than a grain of rice. She placed it on a slide and moved to a microscope. Sarah stood awkwardly, not knowing what to do with her hands, afraid to ask questions that would reveal her complete ignorance. After what felt like an eternity, Dr. Reeves straightened. Her expression had changed, gone from clinical interest to something sharper, more intense. "Ms. Chen, I need to ask you something very important. Have you shown this to anyone else?" "No, just my daughter, and she's 8. "Good. Don't." "Not yet." Dr. Reeves turned to face her fully. "What I'm seeing in this sample is, I need to run more tests. But if I'm right, what you've brought me isn't just an old ship model. What is it?" Dr. Reeves chose her words carefully. "The amber contains biological material, extremely well-preserved biological material. But it's not just insects or plant matter, it's tissue. Animal tissue, from species I don't immediately recognize." The room felt suddenly smaller. "I don't understand." "Neither do I. Not yet." Dr. Reeves looked at the ship. But whatever this ship sailed through, whatever waters it was in when it sank, it preserved something that shouldn't exist in this condition. Something that could potentially rewrite what we know about marine biology from that era. "Is it worth money?" Sarah asked, and immediately felt stupid for asking. But Dr. Reeves didn't judge. She just nodded slowly. "If it's authentic, if it contains what I think it does, then yes. Ms. Chen, this could be worth a great deal of money. But more than that, it could be invaluable to science." Sarah heard the words but couldn't process them. Worth money. Invaluable. Scientific discovery. None of it connected to the broken ship she'd bought for $35. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now?" Dr. Reeves pulled out her phone. "Now I make some calls. And you, Ms. Chen, need to understand something. If this is what I think it is, your life is about to change dramatically. Are you prepared for that?" Sarah looked at the amber-veined ship, at the scientist whose hands were already moving to document and analyze, at the future that was suddenly full of possibilities instead of just problems. "No," she said honestly, "but I'm ready to try." Dr. Reeves smiled slightly. "Good answer. Let's begin." The next 72 hours passed in a blur. Dr. Reeves moved with focused intensity, making calls to her department head, to someone she referred to only as Marcus at Genomics, and most surprisingly, to a lawyer. "You need representation," Dr. Reeves said. "Before word gets out, you need legal protection. I can't afford a lawyer." "You won't have to. Any attorney worth their credentials will take this on contingency once they understand what you have." Dr. Reeves was already typing on her phone. "Within 24 hours, you're going to have more people interested in this specimen than you know what to do with. Some of them will have your best interests in mind. Many won't." Sarah felt the walls pressing in. "I don't understand what's happening." Dr. Reeves stopped typing and looked at her directly. "What's happening is that you've discovered something that shouldn't exist. That amber sample I examined, The tissue preserved inside dates preliminary to approximately 18,000 years before present. But the ship itself is clearly 18th century construction. Do you understand what that means? No. It means this ship was built using amber that was already ancient when it was harvested. Amber that contained preserved DNA from species we've never been able to study intact. The word DNA clicked something in Sarah's memory. Like the mosquito with the dinosaur blood? Exactly like that, except real, and far more scientifically valuable. Dr. Reeves moved closer to the ship. Ms. Chen, we can extract usable genetic material from this. We can sequence it, analyze it, potentially identify extinct species. The research applications alone are staggering. But how much is it worth? Sarah asked, hating herself for asking. But Mia had a field trip she couldn't afford, and rent was due in 11 days. Dr. Reeves didn't judge. I can't give you a number yet. But consider this. In 2007, a single piece of amber containing a feather sold for over $40,000. Your ship has hundreds of amber inclusions, many containing tissue samples, if even a fraction of them yield viable DNA. She didn't finish the sentence. Sarah sat down heavily, her legs suddenly unreliable. $40,000. For one piece. She had hundreds. I need to pick up my daughter from school, she heard herself say. Of course. But Ms. Chen, before you go, I need you to sign some papers. Just basic custody documentation, confirming you're the legal owner and granting me permission to conduct preliminary analysis. The papers appeared. Sarah read them 3 times, understanding maybe half of the legal language, but the core message was clear. She owned the ship, she was allowing Dr. Reeves to study it, and she retained all rights to whatever discoveries resulted. She signed with a hand that trembled slightly. I'll call you tomorrow with updates, Dr. Reeves promised. In the meantime, please don't discuss this with anyone. Once word gets out, the pressure will be intense. Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. She left the laboratory in a daze, drove back through streets that looked the same but felt completely different. Mia bounced out of the building at dismissal. How was school? Sarah asked. Good. We learned about sea turtles. Mia paused, studying Sarah's face. Mama, you look funny. Funny how? I don't know. Different. Sarah started the car. I met with that scientist today, the one I emailed about our ship. Really? What did she say? She said it might be important, that it might have things inside the amber that could help scientists learn about the past. Mia was quiet for a moment. Then, is it worth a lot of money? Sarah had never successfully hidden anything from her daughter. Maybe, Sarah said. We don't know yet. She needs to study it more. But maybe. Yeah, baby. Maybe. Mia smiled, and it wasn't the smile of a child imagining toys or treats. It was something quieter, more cautious. The smile of someone who'd learned not to expect too much, but couldn't quite stop hoping. That night, Sarah lay on the couch staring at her phone. Dr. Reeves had texted twice. Updates about preliminary findings, about colleagues who wanted to see the specimen. Sarah should have felt excited. Instead, she felt terrified. She'd spent 8 years learning to survive in a world where she understood the rules. But this world had different rules, and she didn't know them. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Dr. Reeves. I know this is overwhelming, but you need to see something. Can you come back to the lab tomorrow morning? Bring Mia if you need to. This can't wait. Sarah stared at the message. Can't wait. In her experience, things that couldn't wait were never good. She texted back, I'll be there. 9 a.m.? The response was immediate. Perfect. You're going to want to see this. Mrs. Kowalski agreed to let them keep her car another day. They drove to the laboratory through morning traffic, Mia chattering about a spelling test, while Sarah's mind ran through catastrophic scenarios. The ship had been stolen. The amber was fake. Dr. Reeves had been mistaken. But when they reached the laboratory, Dr. Reeves met them at the door with an expression Sarah had never seen on anyone's face before. Pure, undiluted excitement barely contained. "Thank you for coming quickly," she said, then noticed Mia. "This must be your daughter." "I'm Mia," Mia said, suddenly shy. "We found the ship together." "Did you? That's wonderful." Dr. Reeves crouched to Mia's level. "Would you like to see what your ship is teaching us about the past?" They followed Dr. Reeves upstairs. The laboratory had transformed overnight. More equipment crowded the space. More people in white coats worked at stations, and the ship sat under bright examination lights. "This is Dr. Marcus Chen." Dr. Reeves gestured to an Asian man in his 50s. "He's our genomics specialist. Marcus, this is Sarah and Mia Chen, our specimens owners." Dr. Chen looked up with barely contained excitement. "Ms. Chen, I need to show you something. But first, I need you to understand that what we've found is so unprecedented that we're having difficulty processing it ourselves." He pulled up images on a large monitor. Microscope slides, Sarah realized, showing the amber samples in magnified detail. Even she could see the structures preserved inside. Filaments, cells, what might have been tissue or bone. "We've extracted DNA from 3 separate amber inclusions," Dr. Chen explained. "All 3 samples show extraordinary preservation. We're talking about genetic material that's 18 to 20,000 years old." Sarah tried to wrap her mind around the number. 20,000 years. Before civilization. Before recorded history. "What species?" she asked. Dr. Chen and Dr. Reeves exchanged a glance. "That's where it gets complicated," Dr. Chen said. 2 of the samples match known prehistoric megafauna, mammoth and a species of giant ground sloth. Those are valuable, certainly, but not unprecedented. But the 3rd sample, Dr. Reeves cut in, unable to contain herself, doesn't match anything in our databases. Not extinct species, not living species, nothing. It's completely unknown. The room felt suddenly airless. "What does that mean?" "It means," Dr. Chen said slowly, "that your amber contains genetic material from a creature science has never encountered. It's a ghost species, preserved by accident in amber, that somehow ended up in the hull of an 18th century ship." Maya tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "Mama, does that mean we found a new animal?" "Not new," Dr. Reeves corrected gently. "Very, very old. But yes, a species no one knew existed." Sarah felt her knees weaken. She sat down on the nearest stool. "How much is something like that worth?" The scientists exchanged another look. "There's no market precedent," Dr. Chen admitted. "But consider this. Pharmaceutical companies pay millions for access to unique genetic sequences. Museums bid aggressively for specimens that expand our understanding of prehistoric life. We're talking about value in the tens of millions," Dr. Reeves said bluntly. "Possibly much more, depending on what else we find in the remaining amber." Tens of millions. The words didn't sound real. Sarah had spent 8 years worrying about hundreds of dollars, about whether she could afford milk and rent in the same week. Tens of millions existed in a different universe. "I don't understand how this is possible," she said. "Our best theory is that the ship was built using ancient amber harvested from deposits along the Baltic coast," Dr. Reeves explained. "The builders either didn't know or didn't care what the amber contained. They just saw a beautiful, durable material perfect for reinforcing the hull. But why would they do that? Wouldn't it be expensive?" "Incredibly expensive," Dr. Reeves agreed. "Which suggests this wasn't a normal merchant vessel. This was a ship built for someone with unusual resources. The amber wasn't decorative. It was functional." Dr. Chen pulled up more images. We've also found evidence that this wasn't the ship's first voyage when it sank. There are marine organisms embedded in the outer amber layers. They tell a story of a vessel that sailed for years, possibly decades. Do you know what sank it? Mia asked. Not yet, Dr. Reeves said. But here's what's remarkable. The ship sank in a way that preserved the amber perfectly. It ended up in conditions: cold water, low oxygen, rapid burial in sediment, that prevented decay. Then someone recovered it, probably in the 1960s, and it entered the collector's market. Captain Emery, Sarah said, remembering the estate salewoman's stories. Exactly. Captain Emery somehow acquired this at auction, recognized its significance, and kept it until his death. You're the first person to bring it to scientific attention. The full weight of it settled on Sarah. She'd bought history. She'd bought prehistory. She'd bought something that would rewrite textbooks for $35 and a desperate hope. What happens now? She asked. Dr. Reeves pulled out a folder thick with papers. Now we need to talk about next steps. You have options, Miss Chen. Several institutions have already expressed interest. Universities, museums, private foundations. They're prepared to make offers. How soon? As soon as you're ready. But I strongly advise you to consult with legal representation first. Sarah thought about her stack of unpaid bills, about Mia's field trip, about rent due in 9 days. How complex? Let me put it this way, Dr. Chen said. If you sell the specimen outright, you'll receive a large lump sum, but you'll lose any future rights to discoveries. If you license research access instead, you'll receive smaller immediate payment, but retain ownership. There are also tax implications, liability considerations, intellectual property questions. It was too much. Too many decisions she wasn't qualified to make. Sarah felt panic rising. I need time, she said. Of course, Dr. Reeves said quickly. But Ms. Chen, I need to be honest. Word is already spreading in the scientific community. Within a week, maybe less, you're going to have attention you're not prepared for. Media, competing institutions, people who want to challenge your ownership. You need to make decisions before that happens. How do I even start? Dr. Reeves pulled out a business card. This is the lawyer I mentioned. Her name is Jennifer Tam. She specializes in intellectual property. She's agreed to meet with you today, if you're available. No charge for the initial consultation. Sarah took the card. Jennifer Tam, Escorner Partner, Hawthorne and Associates. An address in downtown Charleston that Sarah had never had reason to visit. I have to work tonight, she said. Then realized how absurd that sounded. She was potentially sitting on tens of millions of dollars. But if she didn't show up, Derek would cut her hours. And if the ship deal fell through somehow, she'd still need that job. Call Jennifer, Dr. Reeves urged. At least talk to her. Sarah looked at Mia, who was standing at the examination table, peering at the ship with scientific curiosity. Her daughter, who'd asked if they'd ever get lucky. Okay, Sarah said. I'll call. She made the call from the parking lot. Jennifer Tam answered on the second ring. Ms. Chen, Dr. Reeves briefed me on your situation. I have time this afternoon if you can make it downtown. 1 o'clock? I'll be there. The address led them to a building Sarah had passed 100 times, but never entered. All glass and steel and quiet wealth. The reception area alone probably cost more than Sarah's annual income. She felt immediately out of place in her Target jeans and worn jacket. But Jennifer Tam, when she appeared, wasn't what Sarah expected. She was young, maybe 35, in a blazer that probably cost a month's rent, but with a warm smile. She shook Sarah's hand firmly, then crouched to greet Mia. You must be the one who helped find the ship, she said. Mia nodded, shy again. That's very impressive. Finding treasures is hard work, In Jennifer's office, modern, organized, with law books and framed diplomas, they talked for nearly 2 hours. Jennifer explained options, broke down legal terminology into language Sarah could actually understand, and most importantly, didn't judge when Sarah asked basic questions. "Here's what you need to understand," Jennifer said. "Right now, you have something extremely valuable. But value only matters if you can protect it and leverage it properly. There are people who will try to take advantage of your situation. They'll make offers that sound generous but lock you into unfavorable terms. How do I know which offers are real? You don't. Not without representation. That's why I'm here." Jennifer slid a contract across the desk. "This is my standard agreement. I work on contingency. I take a percentage of whatever compensation you receive, but you pay nothing up front. I handle all negotiations and make sure you understand every decision before you make it." Sarah read the contract carefully. 20% of any sale or licensing agreement. It seemed like a lot, but 20% of tens of millions was still more money than she'd see in multiple lifetimes. "What if nothing comes of it?" she asked. "Then you owe me nothing. That's the risk I'm taking." Jennifer's expression softened. "Ms. Chen, I reviewed the preliminary findings Dr. Reeves sent me. Unless something catastrophic happens, this specimen is worth significant money. The question isn't if, but how much, and under what terms." Sarah looked at Mia, who was drawing on scratch paper Jennifer had provided. This was for her. All of this was for her daughter's future. "Okay," Sarah said. "Where do I sign?" The contract was executed quickly. Sarah now had a lawyer. The thought was surreal. "First things first," Jennifer said. "We need to secure the specimen. Right now it's sitting in a university lab with minimal oversight. We need a proper storage agreement, insurance, documentation of chain of custody." "Dr. Reeves is trustworthy," Sarah said quickly. "I'm sure she is. But institutions are complicated. What if the university claims they have rights because research was conducted on their equipment? We need to eliminate ambiguity." Sarah hadn't thought of any of that. "What do I need to do?" "Nothing. That's why you hired me. I'll coordinate with Dr. Reeves and make sure your ownership is documented and protected. In the meantime, you continue your life as normally as possible." "I work at a restaurant," Sarah heard herself say. "I serve breakfast and dinner and make tips. That's my life." Jennifer didn't blink. "Then you keep doing that. Having a routine. Staying grounded. That's going to be important. This process moves fast once it starts, but there are also long periods of waiting. Don't let it consume you." They left Jennifer's office as afternoon shadows stretched across the city. Sarah felt simultaneously relieved and more anxious than before. She had help now, but that also meant the situation was real in a way it hadn't been. She dropped Mia at Mrs. Kowalski's, changed into her work uniform, and caught the bus to Dominic's. The restaurant was busy. Sarah moved through it automatically, taking orders and refilling drinks, her mind only partially present. Between tables, she checked her phone. 3 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize. 2 voicemails. The first was from someone claiming to be from a cable news network. The second was from a man who said he represented a private collector interested in making an immediate offer. Sarah's hands shook as she deleted both messages. Word was spreading. The protected bubble was already breaking. Her shift ended at 11. She counted her tips, $31 below average, and caught the late bus home. She checked her email and found 12 new messages. Universities, research institutes, museums, all expressing interest. She forwarded everything to Jennifer and collapsed on the couch. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Reeves. "We've completed analysis of 5 more amber samples. You need to see the results. Can you come tomorrow?" Sarah stared at the message. 5 more samples. 5 more potential discoveries. She texted back, "I'll try. I work morning shift." The response: "This is important. Bring your lawyer if possible." At work the next day, Sarah told Derek she needed another afternoon off. His face went through several expressions before settling on annoyed resignation. "This is becoming a pattern, Sarah. I know. I'm sorry. It's important." "What's so important that you're missing shifts constantly?" She almost told him, almost let the words spill out. But caution held her back. Dr. Reeves had warned about speaking too soon. "Family emergency," she said instead. She finished her shift at noon, caught the bus back to the laboratory, picking up Mia from school on the way. At the laboratory, Dr. Reeves and Dr. Chen waited with Jennifer Tam, who'd arrived first. The addition of her lawyer made everything feel more official. "Thank you for coming," Dr. Reeves said. She looked like she hadn't slept much. "We've made discoveries that change the scope of everything." They moved to the examination room, where the ship sat under bright lights, now with sections carefully marked and labeled. Dr. Chen pulled up images on the monitor. "We've now analyzed 8 amber inclusions total. The results are unprecedented." He cycled through slides. Each one showed preserved tissue, all remarkable in their clarity. Sample 4 yielded DNA from a species of cave bear. Sample 5, a bird we believe is a relative of the passenger pigeon. Sample 6, marine organisms that match no known genus. And Sample 7, Dr. Reeves interrupted, contains partial remains of what appears to be a juvenile mammoth, not just hair or tissue fragments, actual bone structure preserved at the cellular level. Sarah tried to process this. How is that possible? How does bone end up in amber? It shouldn't, Dr. Chen admitted. Amber typically preserves smaller organisms, but this suggests the amber was formed under extraordinary circumstances. Possibly a massive resin flow that engulfed larger biological materials before they could decay. Or, Dr. Reeves added carefully, someone deliberately embedded these materials in manufactured amber. We're not ruling out the possibility that this was intentional preservation. Mia, who'd been silent, raised her hand like she was in school. "What about Sample 8? Dr. Chen and Dr. Reeves exchanged a weighted glance. "Sample 8 is why we asked you to come," Dr. Chen said. "Sample 8 is why everything changes." He pulled up a new image. This one was different from the others. The tissue preserved in the amber was larger, more complex, arranged in structures that looked almost deliberate. "This is neural tissue," Dr. Chen said quietly. "Brain matter. From a creature we haven't been able to identify yet. But the cell structure suggests high cognitive function. We're talking about a species that was not only unknown, but potentially more intelligent than any prehistoric animal we've encountered." The room went silent. Sarah looked at the image, at the impossible preservation of something that had thought and felt and existed 20,000 years ago. "How much?" Jennifer asked, her voice steady but her professional mask slipping slightly. "How much is tissue like this worth?" "There's no precedent," Dr. Reeves said, "but pharmaceutical research, neurological studies, evolutionary biology, the applications are endless." "Give me a number," Jennifer pressed. Dr. Chen hesitated. Then, "Conservative estimate? The entire specimen, with rights to all research conducted on it, could sell for between $200 and $400 million. The number hung in the air, too large to be real, too specific to be dismissed. Sarah heard herself laugh, a strange, broken sound. "That's not possible." "It's an estimate," Dr. Reeves said. "But Ms. Chen, what you have isn't just scientifically valuable. It's culturally significant. This will rewrite textbooks. Museums will build exhibits around it. Researchers will spend careers studying it." Jennifer was already making notes. "Who knows about this? Beyond this room?" "Our immediate team," Dr. Reeves said. Maybe 20 people total, all under confidentiality agreements. But that won't hold much longer. Rumors are already circulating. We need to move quickly, Jennifer said, before someone challenges ownership. Do we have ironclad documentation that Ms. Chen is the legal owner? The estate sale receipt, Sarah said. It's at home. Get it. Today. Scan it. Make copies. Send everything to me. Jennifer looked at Dr. Reeves. What's the timeline for finishing the analysis? We could rush it and be done in 2 weeks, but thorough analysis will take months. How much of the specimen would be consumed in complete analysis? Less than 5%, Dr. Chen said. These are tiny samples. The bulk of the amber would remain intact. Jennifer's pen kept moving. Here's what I recommend. We announce the discovery ourselves, control the narrative, press conference, scientific paper, major media outlets. We do it before someone else breaks the story. When? Sarah asked. This week. Friday at the latest. Jennifer looked at her directly. That gives you 3 days to prepare. 3 days to understand what's about to happen to your life. What is about to happen? Media attention, intense scrutiny, people questioning every aspect of how you acquired the specimen. You'll receive offers, some legitimate, some predatory. You'll have to make decisions quickly. Jennifer's expression softened. And you'll have more money than you know what to do with, assuming we negotiate this correctly. Sarah felt dizzy. 3 days. In 3 days, her anonymity would be gone. Her quiet, desperate life would become public property. I need air, she said, standing abruptly. Outside the laboratory, Sarah bent over and tried to breathe normally. Mia appeared beside her, small hand rubbing her back. It's okay, Mama. Just breathe like we practiced. They'd practiced this after Sarah's panic attack started 2 years ago, during the worst of the financial crisis. Mia had learned, too young, how to help her mother through moments when the walls closed in. Sarah breathed. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Count to 4. Again. The panic slowly receded. I'm okay, Sarah said finally. I'm sorry, baby. It's a lot, Mia said simply. Ms. Rodriguez says when things are too big to understand all at once, you just take them one piece at a time. Wisdom from a 3rd-grade teacher. But it was good advice. One piece at a time. Sarah straightened, wiping her eyes. You're right. We can do this. One piece at a time. They went back inside, where the adults had tactfully pretended not to notice her absence. Jennifer had drafted a preliminary timeline. Dr. Reeves had outlined what information they'd release, and Dr. Chen had compiled data. I need to know something, Sarah said, interrupting the planning. If I sell this, if I take whatever offer comes, do I have any obligation to science, to making sure this gets studied properly, and not just locked away in someone's private collection? The question seemed to catch everyone off guard. Dr. Reeves recovered first. Legally? No obligation. Morally? That's your decision. But you think I should care. I think, Dr. Reeves said carefully, that what you found is bigger than any one person's financial needs. This is heritage. This is knowledge that belongs to humanity. But I also think you deserve to benefit from your discovery. Sarah looked at the ship, at the amber-veined hull that had survived centuries to end up in her living room, at the prehistoric creatures suspended in those amber veins, waiting to teach the world about a past no one remembered. What if we could do both? She asked. What if I sold it to an institution that would study it and share the findings? Is that possible? Jennifer nodded slowly. Absolutely. In fact, that would likely increase the value. Museums and universities can generate ongoing revenue through exhibits, research grants, public programs. A private collector just locks it away. You could negotiate terms that ensure public access and scientific study while securing your financial future. How much would something like that be worth? Less than the maximum possible, Jennifer admitted, but still substantial. We're probably talking about 100 to 150 million, depending on the institution and terms. 100 million. Even the lower end of estimates was a number Sarah couldn't conceptualize. I want to do that, Sarah said. I want it to go somewhere it can be studied, somewhere people can learn from it. Jennifer made notes. That's a strong negotiating position. But Sarah, understand that even 100 million will be life-changing in ways you can't predict. Good ways and difficult ways. Are you prepared for that? No. She wasn't prepared. But looking at Mia, thinking about field trips she could afford, and college funds she could create, and a future that wasn't just survival, but actual possibility, that made the fear worth facing. I'll figure it out, Sarah said. We'll figure it out. The meeting continued for another hour, finalizing details about the announcement, about security for the specimen. By the time they left, Sarah's head was spinning. That night, Sarah sat on the couch with her laptop, searching for information about people who'd suddenly come into wealth. The stories were mixed, some inspiring, others cautionary. She found advice. The first year after sudden wealth is the most dangerous. Make no major decisions. Let the reality settle before you act. Good advice. Probably impossible to follow. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Is this Sarah Chen? A man's voice, smooth and professional. Who is this? My name is Richard Caldwell. I represent a private foundation interested in acquiring significant scientific specimens. I understand you've recently come into possession of something remarkable. Sarah's chest tightened. I'm not discussing this. You need to contact my lawyer. Of course. I just wanted to introduce myself before the media circus begins. We can move quickly, Miss Chen. Cash payment, no bureaucracy, complete privacy. Think about it. He hung up before she could respond. Sarah sat in the darkness, feeling the first tendrils of what Dr. Reeves had warned about. The pressure, the attention. She texted Jennifer. Someone called. Richard Caldwell. Private foundation. Said they could move quickly with cash. The response came within seconds. Do not engage. Forward any additional contact to me immediately. This is exactly what we expected. You're about to get a lot of those calls. Sarah didn't sleep much that night. Every time she started to drift off, her phone would buzz with another email, another message. By morning, her inbox had over 50 new messages. And 3 news vans were parked on her street. The media had found her. 3 days had become 3 hours. The story was already out, and Sarah Chen's quiet, desperate life was over. Someone was knocking on her door. Insistent, rapid knocks. Sarah looked through the peephole and saw a woman with a microphone, a cameraman behind her, and a news van in the background. She stepped back from the door, heart pounding. Her phone rang. Jennifer. Don't answer the door, Jennifer said without preamble. Don't talk to anyone. Pack a bag. You and Mia need to leave the apartment. Leave? Where? I've arranged a hotel room downtown, but you can't stay there. By noon, you'll have 20 news crews on your street. I have work. Call in sick. Sarah, I know this is overwhelming, but trust me. You need to be somewhere you can control access. Sarah looked at Mia, still sleeping peacefully, unaware that their lives were being upended. But the knocking continued. More voices outside now, multiple crews competing for position. Okay, give me 20 minutes. They packed quickly and quietly. Sarah grabbed essentials, clothes, toiletries, Mia's favorite stuffed elephant, chargers. She left everything else, including the ship, which was still safe at the laboratory. They slipped out the back entrance, taking the stairs down to the alley where Mrs. Kowalski's car was parked. News crews hadn't discovered the back exit yet. Sarah buckled Mia in, started the engine, and pulled out into morning traffic, watching in the rearview mirror as satellite trucks multiplied on her street. The hotel was downtown, nice in a way that made Sarah immediately uncomfortable. Jennifer met them in the lobby, ushering them quickly to a room on the 8th floor with a view of the harbor and more space than Sarah's entire apartment. "I'm sorry about this," Jennifer said. "The story leaked earlier than we anticipated. Someone at the university talked. The genetics findings were too interesting to keep quiet." "What happens now?" "Now we control what we can. I've scheduled the official press conference for tomorrow afternoon. That gives us time to craft your statement, prepare you for questions, and get ahead of any misinformation." Mia was exploring the hotel room, jumping on the bed, discovering the mini fridge. Sarah watched her daughter delight in what was probably a nightmare for Sarah, being displaced from home, living in temporary space, everything uncertain. But to Mia, this was an adventure, the kind of thing her classmates probably did on vacations Sarah could never afford. "Will I be able to go home?" Sarah asked. "Eventually, once the initial frenzy dies down. But Sarah, I need you to understand something. Your old life, the anonymity, the privacy, that's gone. Permanently. Even after the story fades from headlines, you'll always be the woman who found the amber ship. People will recognize you, Google you, make assumptions about you. That's the cost of this kind of discovery." Sarah sank onto the edge of the bed. "I just wanted to pay rent. I know. But you stumbled onto something much bigger than rent money." Jennifer's expression softened. "For what it's worth, you handled everything right so far. You got representation, you didn't rush into bad deals, and you considered the ethical implications. Most people in your position make catastrophic mistakes in the first 48 hours. You didn't. Small comfort, but comfort nonetheless." They spent the rest of the morning preparing for the press conference. Jennifer coached her on how to answer questions, what to reveal, and what to hold back, how to maintain composure. "They'll dig into your background," Jennifer warned. "They'll find out about your financial struggles, probably mention them in coverage. Some will frame it as a feel-good story. Struggling single mom gets lucky break. Others will question whether you deserve this windfall." What do I say to that? You say that you acquired the specimen legally. You brought it to scientific attention immediately, and you're committed to ensuring it benefits research and public knowledge. You don't apologize for being poor. You state facts and move on. Mia fell asleep during the rehearsal. Sarah covered her with a blanket and returned to the disaster prep. By evening, Dr. Reeves had arrived with final authentication results. The specimen was confirmed authentic. 8 distinct prehistoric DNA samples, several from unknown species. Multiple institutions had submitted preliminary offers ranging from 75 million to 300 million. 300 million, Sarah repeated, the number still refusing to feel real. "That's from a consortium of universities and museums," Dr. Reeves explained. "They'd share ownership and research access. It's not the highest pure cash offer, but it guarantees the specimen stays in scientific circulation and public view." "What's the highest cash offer?" 250 million from a private foundation. But they won't commit to research access or public exhibition. Sarah didn't have to think long. "The consortium, I want it studied." Jennifer made notes. "We'll negotiate terms tomorrow after the press conference, but that's a strong starting position." After everyone left, Sarah stood at the hotel window, watching the city lights reflect on dark harbor water. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages she didn't read, calls from numbers she didn't recognize. Her old co-worker had posted a photo. Sarah in her Dominic's uniform. The caption, "She served me breakfast last week, and now she's worth millions." Good for her." The comments were mixed, supportive and bitter, jealous and inspiring. People she'd never met had opinions about her daughter, her choices, her future. She turned off her phone and sat in the dark, listening to Mia breathe in sleep, trying to remember the woman she'd been 4 days ago, the one who'd spent $35 on a broken ship because her daughter asked about luck, and she couldn't bear to say no. That woman was gone. Sarah Chen, the struggling waitress, had died the moment she'd opened that estate sale email. The woman who remained had to figure out who she was becoming. Tomorrow she'd face cameras and questions and a world that suddenly cared very much what she thought. Tomorrow she'd become public property, a story for people to tell about luck and perseverance, and how sometimes, impossibly, hope paid off. But tonight, in this hotel room she couldn't have afforded yesterday, Sarah let herself feel what she'd been suppressing. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief that the math finally worked, that the numbers added up, that she could pay for Mia's field trip and every field trip after. That rent would never be late again, that the future, which had always been a threatening shadow, had transformed into possibility. She cried quietly, careful not to wake her daughter, tears that were joy and terror and gratitude all mixed into something that hurt and healed at the same time. Outside, the city continued its indifferent rhythm, but inside room 847 of the Harbor View Hotel, Sarah Chen sat in the darkness and let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe luck was real after all. The morning of the press conference arrived with crystalline clarity that made everything feel hyper-real. Sarah woke before her alarm, disoriented by the hotel room's unfamiliar geography. For exactly 5 seconds, she thought she was dreaming. Then Mia shifted in the bed beside her, and reality crashed back. Today she would stand in front of cameras and reporters and tell the world about a ship she'd bought for $35. Today her face would be on news sites and social media. Today everything would become irrevocably, permanently different. Jennifer arrived at 7 with breakfast, clothes, and a makeup artist Sarah hadn't known she'd need. "Trust me," Jennifer said when Sarah protested. "Under those lights, everyone needs help. It's not about vanity. It's about looking competent and put together so people focus on your words." The makeup artist was kind and efficient, working quietly while Sarah tried not to fidget. She applied foundation to cover the exhaustion Sarah wore like a second skin, concealer under eyes that hadn't known real rest in years. When she was done, Sarah barely recognized herself in the mirror. She looked like someone who belonged at a press conference. The clothes Jennifer had brought were simple but expensive. A navy blazer, white blouse, dark pants that actually fit properly. Sarah had never owned anything that fit this well, that made her look professional instead of just trying. When she was dressed, Mia's reflection appeared in the mirror. Her daughter was watching with wide eyes. "Mama, you look like you're on TV." "I'm going to be on TV. Baby." "Are you scared?" Sarah crouched down to Mia's level. "Terrified. Ms. Rodriguez says being scared means you're about to do something brave." 8 years old, and already wiser than Sarah felt. She pulled her daughter close. "You're right. And you know what helps when you're scared?" "What?" "Knowing that no matter what happens out there, we still have each other. That doesn't change." Mia nodded against her shoulder. "Even if everyone thinks you're famous now. Even then. Especially then." Mrs. Kowalski arrived to watch Mia during the press conference, paid in cash that Sarah could suddenly afford, without worrying about groceries. The old woman accepted it with her usual stoic practicality, but Sarah caught something in her expression. Pride, maybe. "You tell them," Mrs. Kowalski said, gripping Sarah's hand briefly. You tell them what you found. The press conference was being held at the Coastal Research Institute's main campus, not the warehouse satellite lab, but the actual university building with marble floors and vaulted ceilings. Sarah rode there in Jennifer's car, hands clasped in her lap to stop them trembling. Remember, you acquired it legally, you brought it to scientific attention immediately, and you're committed to ensuring research access. Those 3 points, no matter how they phrase the questions. Don't get defensive. State facts and stop talking. What if someone asks about the money? You're in negotiations. You can't comment on specific figures. They pulled up to a building already surrounded by news vans, satellite trucks, reporters setting up equipment. More media than Sarah had ever seen in person. I can't do this, she said quietly. Jennifer turned to face her. Yes, you can. You've done harder things than this. You've raised a daughter alone on poverty wages. You've survived eviction threats and impossible choices and years of barely holding on. Standing in front of cameras and reading a statement? That's easy compared to what you've already done. Sarah wanted to argue, but Jennifer was right. She'd survived worse than questions and attention. She'd survived 8 years of quiet desperation. Inside, they were ushered to a green room where Dr. Reeves and Dr. Chen waited, both dressed more formally than Sarah had seen them. Dr. Reeves gripped her hand. You've got this. Just be honest. The science speaks for itself. The press conference room was set up like something from movies. A raised platform with a podium. Microphones clustered like metal flowers. Rows of chairs filled with reporters. Cameras on tripods in the back. And lights so bright they felt physical. Sarah took her place at the table beside Dr. Reeves and Dr. Chen, Jennifer sitting just off to the side. A university representative opened with formal remarks about the significance of the discovery. Then Dr. Reeves presented the scientific findings. She used slides and data, speaking in measured academic language about DNA extraction, about species identification, about the unprecedented preservation quality. The reporters took notes, asked clarifying questions, nodded. Dr. Chen followed with specifics about the genomic analysis, about what the neural tissue samples revealed, about research implications. His presentation was dense and technical, but the underlying message was clear. This was important. This mattered. Then it was Sarah's turn. She stood on legs that felt unreliable, approached the podium with its garden of microphones, and looked out at a room full of strangers who would judge every word she spoke. Jennifer had written a statement. Sarah had memorized it, practiced it. But standing there, under those lights, facing those cameras, something shifted. She pulled out her phone and ignored the prepared speech. "My name is Sarah Chen," she began, and her voice only shook slightly. 4 days ago, I was a waitress at a breakfast restaurant, working double shifts to pay rent on a 1-bedroom apartment I shared with my 8-year-old daughter. 4 days ago, I had $35 in tip money and a choice to make about whether to spend it on groceries or her school field trip. The room had gone very quiet. This wasn't the prepared statement. Jennifer shifted in her peripheral vision, but didn't stop her. I spent that $35 on a broken ship at an estate sale because my daughter asked me if we'd ever get lucky. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it might be worth. I couldn't tell her no. I couldn't tell her that luck wasn't real, that treasures didn't exist, that sometimes being poor meant staying poor, no matter how hard you worked. Sarah looked directly at one of the cameras. The scientists will tell you about the DNA, about the prehistoric species, about what this discovery means for research. That's important. That's why I'm here. But I want to say something else. I want to say that I didn't steal this. I didn't trick anyone. I bought it legally, with money I earned serving breakfast to people who mostly didn't look at me. And when I realized it might be important, I brought it to scientists immediately. She paused, gathering courage. I know some of you are going to write stories questioning whether someone like me deserves this, whether I'm qualified to make decisions about something so valuable, whether it's fair that a struggling waitress gets this kind of windfall when so many other people are just as desperate and don't get lucky. The room waited. Sarah continued. I don't have good answers to those questions. I don't know why luck finds some people and not others. What I do know is that I'm going to make sure this specimen goes somewhere it can be studied, somewhere people can learn from it, somewhere it benefits more than just me and my daughter. Because yes, this is going to change our lives, but it can also change what we understand about the past, and that matters more than any amount of money. She looked down at her prepared statement, then back up at the cameras. That's all I wanted to say. The scientists can answer your technical questions. My lawyer can address legal and financial matters. But I wanted you to hear from me, directly, what happened and why I made the choices I made. Thank you. She stepped back from the podium. The room erupted with questions. Reporters standing and calling out, hands raised, voices overlapping. The university representative tried to establish order. A reporter in the front row got the first question. Ms. Chen, can you tell us what the specimen is expected to sell for? Jennifer leaned into her microphone. We're currently in negotiations with several institutions. Specific figures are confidential at this stage. Another reporter. Dr. Reeves, how rare is a discovery of this magnitude? Dr. Reeves handled it professionally, talking about the rarity of preserved DNA, about the uniqueness of the neural tissue samples, about how this represented a once-in-a-generation finding. The questions continued, but Sarah stuck to Jennifer's coaching. Simple answers. Facts without embellishment. Then a reporter near the back stood up, and Sarah recognized something in his expression, the kind of skepticism that had teeth. Ms. Chen, some might say it's suspicious that you, with no background in science or maritime history, somehow recognized the value of this specimen when multiple previous owners didn't. Can you explain how that happened? The question landed like an accusation. Sarah felt every eye in the room turn toward her. She took a breath. I didn't recognize the value. I saw a broken ship with weird amber in it, and I bought it, because the woman running the estate sale took pity on me and let me have it cheap. Then my daughter started researching amber online, and I got curious. I sent an email to Dr. Reeves with photos because her published research was the first thing I found when I searched for information. That's it. There's no conspiracy. There's no hidden expertise. There's just a desperate mother who took a chance and got lucky. The reporter pressed. But surely you must have suspected. I suspected it was a waste of $35 I couldn't afford to waste, Sarah cut in. And suddenly she wasn't scared anymore. She was angry. Angry at the implication that her poverty somehow made her dishonest, that luck had to be explained away because people like her weren't supposed to get lucky. I suspected I'd made a stupid decision, and that I'd have to explain to my daughter why we couldn't afford her field trip because I bought a broken boat. I suspected that I was failing at the only thing that mattered, which was taking care of my kid. The last thing I suspected was that my life was about to change. The room was silent again. The reporter sat down. No one else asked about her motives. Jennifer caught her eye and nodded slightly. Good. The press conference continued for another 30 minutes, but the energy had shifted. The questions became more respectful, more focused on the science. When it finally ended, Sarah felt like she'd run a marathon. That wasn't the prepared statement, Jennifer said, but she was smiling. I know. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was perfect. You made yourself relatable instead of mysterious. You controlled the narrative before anyone else could frame it for you. Jennifer checked her phone. And it's already working. Social media is calling you authentic, brave, honest. The story is spreading exactly the way we want it to. Dr. Reeves squeezed her shoulder. You did well. Really well. And you said something I should have said, that this matters beyond money. Thank you for that. They stayed at the university for another 2 hours, doing individual interviews with major outlets, posing for photographs. By the time they left, Sarah's face hurt from holding professional expressions, and her voice was hoarse. Back at the hotel, she collapsed on the bed, while Mia showed her all the news stories already appearing online. Photos of Sarah at the podium, headlines about the $35 discovery, and single mom's prehistoric fortune. The comment sections were brutal and supportive in equal measure. Don't read the comments, Jennifer advised when she called later. But the coverage is overwhelmingly positive. You came across exactly how we needed you to. Honest, humble, committed to doing the right thing. What happens now? Now we negotiate. We have 6 serious offers on the table. I need to set up meetings with each institution, review their terms. How long will that take? Ideally, a week. But these things can drag on. Are you okay with staying in the hotel a while longer? Sarah looked around the room that cost more per night than she used to spend on groceries for a week. I think I can manage. The negotiations happened in conference rooms, Sarah sitting quietly, while Jennifer and institutional representatives discussed terms, licensing agreements, research access rights, exhibition schedules, revenue sharing. The legal language was dense and exhausting, but Jennifer translated it. The consortium of universities and museums offered $275 million plus ongoing royalties. The Natural History Museum offered $200 million with guaranteed permanent exhibition. A private research foundation offered $300 million cash, but wouldn't commit to public access. And there were smaller offers, ranging from $60 to $150 million. Sarah met with representatives from each institution. Some were purely transactional. Others understood that this was personal, that she needed to trust them with something that had changed her life. The consortium won by being honest about what they couldn't promise. We can't guarantee that every piece of research will be groundbreaking, their lead negotiator said. We can't promise that the public will care forever. What we can promise is that we'll study this thoroughly, share findings openly, and make sure future generations can learn from it. That's the best we can offer. It was enough. Jennifer negotiated the final terms over 3 intense days. $275 million, paid in structured installments over 5 years. The specimen would be jointly owned by the consortium, displayed in rotation at participating museums. Sarah would retain certain rights, approval over how her story was told in exhibits, consultation on major research decisions, a percentage of revenue from publications, and media rights. This is it, Jennifer said, sliding the final contract across the table. Once you sign, it's done. Your life changes forever. Sarah picked up the pen. It was heavy, expensive, the kind of pen that signed important documents. She thought about the broken ship in her living room 4 days ago. She thought about Mia asking if they'd ever get lucky. She thought about 8 years of desperate mathematics, of counting pennies and hoping they'd be enough. She signed her name in a handwriting that didn't look quite like hers, too steady and confident for someone who'd been shaking with fear just a week ago. The representative smiled and shook her hand. Jennifer hugged her. Papers were copied and distributed. It was official. Sarah Chen was no longer a struggling waitress. She was a philanthropist, a benefactor of science, a woman whose name would appear in museums and academic papers. She was rich. The word felt foreign and uncomfortable, but it was true. $275 million true. They left the law office in the middle of the afternoon. stepping out into sunshine that felt different somehow. The city looked the same, but Sarah moved through it differently, no longer rushing to catch buses she couldn't afford to miss. No longer calculating every purchase down to the penny, no longer living in that constant state of fear. "What do you want to do now?" Jennifer asked. Sarah thought about it. "I want to go back to my apartment." They drove back to the neighborhood Sarah had left days ago. The news vans were gone, but neighbors watched as Jennifer's car pulled up. Sarah got out and stood on the cracked sidewalk, looking at the building she'd called home for 8 years. It looked smaller than she remembered, more run down. This was where she'd raised Mia, where she'd cried over unpaid bills. This was where her life had been small and hard and sometimes unbearable. Mrs. Kowalski appeared on the porch, Mia beside her. Her daughter ran down the steps and crashed into Sarah's arms, and for a moment, everything else fell away. "Can we go inside?" Mia asked. It felt strange climbing those familiar stairs. The apartment looked exactly as they'd left it. The couch that doubled as Sarah's bed, the kitchen with its broken burner, the bedroom where Mia had dreamed dreams Sarah had tried to protect. "It's so small," Mia said quietly. "Yeah," Sarah agreed. "It is." They stood there for a while, looking at the life they'd lived before a broken ship changed everything. Sarah wanted to feel grateful, but mostly she just felt tired of remembering how hard it had been. "We don't have to come back here," she said. "We can find somewhere else, somewhere with more space, somewhere with heat that works." "What about Mrs. Kowalski?" Sarah smiled. "We'll bring her with us, if she wants to come." Mrs. Kowalski did want to come, when Sarah offered to buy her a house to make sure she was taken care of. The old woman's face crumpled. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know. But you took care of Mia when I couldn't afford to pay you properly. You kept us going. This is me paying you properly." They found a house a month later, in a neighborhood with good schools and trees that provided actual shade. 3 bedrooms, a yard, a kitchen with appliances that worked, heat that functioned. It cost $2 million, which was staggering, but which Jennifer assured her was reasonable. Mia got her own room, painted the color she chose, filled with furniture that wasn't secondhand. She got books and art supplies and a computer for school. But more than things, she got stability. Got a mother who wasn't constantly stressed about money. Got a future that held possibility instead of just survival. The field trip happened. Sarah wrote a check for $45 and didn't have to choose between that and groceries. Mia came home excited, talking about the tide pools and hermit crabs, and Sarah listened with attention that wasn't divided by worry. Derek from the restaurant called 2 weeks after the story broke, congratulating her and asking if she'd consider investing in a restaurant expansion. Sarah politely declined and never called back. That life, the one where her value was measured in tips and her schedule was determined by someone else's needs, was over. But she did go back once, a month after the contracts were signed. She walked into Dominic's during the morning rush, ordered coffee from a waitress who looked exactly as tired as Sarah used to look, and left a $5,000 tip with a note. "For everyone working this shift. Because I know how hard you're trying." She heard later that the money had been split among the morning staff, that some had cried, that Derek had tried to claim part of it for management, but had been overruled. Small victories. Small ways of acknowledging that luck was random, and sometimes the only thing separating success from desperation was which estate sale you happened to visit on a random Saturday morning. The specimen went on display at the Natural History Museum 6 months after the contracts were signed. They'd cleaned it further, stabilized the structure, mounted it in a climate-controlled case with lighting that made the amber seem to glow from within. The exhibition was called Messages from the Past, DNA Preserved in Time, and it became the museum's most popular exhibit almost immediately. Sarah attended the opening with Mia, walking through halls filled with people who'd come to see what she'd found. They'd created interactive displays explaining DNA extraction, showing magnified images of the preserved tissue samples. And in the center of it all was her $35 gamble. The placard beside it read, "Discovered by Sarah Chen, 2024. Donated to the Consortium for Scientific Research and Public Education." Not bought at an estate sale by a desperate woman. Not accidentally acquired by someone with no qualifications. Just discovered. As if she'd been looking for it all along. As if luck had been inevitable instead of impossible. People took photos. Kids pressed their faces close to the glass. Researchers consulted tablets. And Sarah stood back, watching, trying to process that this was real. That the broken ship that had dominated her tiny living room was now teaching the world about the past. That her poverty and desperation and $35 risk had led to this moment. "Mama, look," Mia said, pointing to a group of schoolkids. "That's Ms. Rodriguez's class. Can we say hi?" They walked over, and Ms. Rodriguez's face lit up with recognition. "Sarah, I was hoping we'd see you here. Kids, this is Mia's mom. She's the one who found this incredible specimen." The children looked at Sarah with wide eyes, seeing not a waitress or a single mom, but someone who'd discovered treasures. Someone who'd changed science. Someone whose story they'd tell when asked to talk about their field trip. "How did you know it was important?" one kid asked. Sarah crouched down to his level. "I didn't. I just got curious. I asked questions. And when I found answers I didn't understand, I asked people who knew more than me. Sometimes that's all it takes. Being curious and asking for help." It was an oversimplification, but it was also true. She'd gotten lucky, yes, but she'd also acted on that luck, had brought it to scientists instead of trying to navigate alone, had made choices that prioritized discovery over immediate profit. After the field trip, kids moved on. Ms. Rodriguez pulled Sarah aside. "I need to tell you something," she said. "After your story broke, I had 3 different students ask me if their families might have treasures hidden somewhere. They started looking at ordinary objects differently, wondering what might be valuable. You gave them a sense of possibility. Is that good? I think so. They're learning that sometimes the world surprises you. That paying attention matters." Ms. Rodriguez smiled. "You've done more than discover prehistoric DNA. You've shown my students that their circumstances don't have to define their futures." Sarah felt tears threatening. "I just bought a broken ship." "You bought hope. For yourself, yes. But also for everyone watching your story. You proved that luck exists, and sometimes finds the people who need it most." They left the museum as afternoon light turned golden, Mia chattering about everything she'd seen. Sarah thought about the question, about the 8 years before the ship, about the countless mornings waking up afraid. "Am I lucky?" Mia asked as they walked to the car. "Yeah, baby, we're lucky. But it's more complicated than that." "How?" "Because lots of people work hard and don't get lucky. Lots of people deserve good things and don't get them. We got lucky, and we're grateful for it. But we also remember that luck isn't fair. It's just random. So, what do we do about that?" Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand. "We help when we can. We don't take it for granted. And we tell our story honestly, so people understand that luck isn't something you earn. It's something that happens, and you just have to decide what to do with it." 2 years after the discovery, Sarah established a foundation, the Chen Foundation for Scientific Education, dedicated to supporting students from low-income backgrounds who showed interest in science and research. It offered scholarships, funded school programs, and created opportunities for kids who lived the life Sarah had lived, where curiosity existed, but resources didn't. The first year, they supported 60 students. The second year, 200. By the fifth year, the foundation was helping thousands of young people access education and research opportunities that had been out of reach. Sarah hired staff, learned about nonprofit management, and discovered that giving money away strategically was harder than she'd expected, but more satisfying than anything she'd done before. She met students whose circumstances mirrored her own, who understood that poverty wasn't failure, but mathematics, who dreamed bigger than their situations allowed. And she told them about the ship, about desperation and $35, and how sometimes you take chances even when logic says not to, about how luck isn't fair, but it's real, and when it finds you, your responsibility is to honor it by making it matter beyond yourself. Dr. Mike Reeves became the Foundation's scientific advisor. Together, they created programs that brought real research into classrooms, that let kids handle actual specimens, that demystified science and made it accessible instead of exclusive. "You've done something remarkable," Dr. Reeves told her after one of the Foundation's annual fundraising events. "You've turned your discovery into a legacy." "I just didn't want other kids to think luck only happens to other people," Sarah said. "It's more than that. You're showing them that their curiosity matters, that asking questions is valuable even when you don't have credentials or expertise, that science belongs to everyone who cares enough to look closely at the world." The amber ship continued to reveal secrets. New papers were published every few months, each one expanding understanding of prehistoric ecosystems, of genetic preservation, of species no one had known existed. The neural tissue sample led to 3 different research breakthroughs and generated enough interest that the specimen was loaned to institutions around the world. Sarah's name appeared in acknowledgments, in exhibit credits, in footnotes of scientific papers. Not as an expert or researcher, but as the person who'd recognized something important and made sure it reached people who could understand it. It was a strange kind of fame, more respect than celebrity, and Sarah found she preferred it that way. She never went back to waitressing, never had to calculate tips or stretch groceries, or lie awake worrying about rent. But she never forgot what that life felt like, what it did to your mind and body and sense of possibility. That memory informed every decision she made with her wealth, every program the Foundation created, every scholarship it funded. Mia grew up aware of what their life had been and what it became. Sarah made sure of that, made sure her daughter understood that the house and the security and the opportunities weren't normal, weren't guaranteed, weren't something they'd earned through virtue or hard work alone. They were lucky, incredibly, impossibly lucky, and that came with responsibility. On the 8th anniversary of the discovery, Sarah and Mia returned to the estate sale house. It was abandoned now, the property tied up in legal disputes, the windows broken and the porch collapsing. But Sarah needed to see it, needed to remember where it all started. They stood on the overgrown driveway, looking at the house that had held a collection worth millions, that had housed a ship carrying prehistoric secrets, that had changed their lives because an old woman had taken pity on a desperate mother. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't gone to that sale?" Mia asked. She was 16 now, tall and thoughtful, and interested in marine biology. "Every day," Sarah admitted, "but I try not to dwell on it." "Why not?" "Because the life we didn't live doesn't matter as much as what we do with the life we have. We got lucky, incredibly lucky. But luck alone isn't enough. You still have to decide who you want to be afterward." Mia nodded, understanding. "Who do you want to be?" Sarah thought about it. "Someone who uses what she was given to make things better for people who haven't gotten lucky yet. Someone who remembers what desperation feels like and never makes anyone else feel small because they're struggling. Someone who proves that where you start doesn't have to determine where you end up. That sounds like who you already are. Maybe. Or maybe Sarah was still becoming that person, still learning how to carry wealth and responsibility and the knowledge that her life could have been completely different if she'd walked past that estate sale listing, if she'd chosen groceries over a broken ship, if she'd said no to her daughter's question about luck. They got back in the car and drove toward home, the real home, the one they'd chosen, the one that held safety and possibility instead of fear. That night, back in their home with its working heat and paid-off mortgage, Sarah sat in her office looking at a photo from the museum exhibit. The amber ship, mounted in its case, glowing with ancient light and modern understanding. And beside it, barely visible in the photograph's edge, was the placard with her name. Discovered by Sarah Chen. Not bought. Not stumbled upon. Not accidentally acquired. Discovered. As if she'd been looking all along. As if hope and desperation and the refusal to tell her daughter that luck wasn't real had been a form of searching. As if $35 and a broken ship had always been meant to find each other, waiting through centuries and coincidences to transform a waitress into a benefactor, poverty into purpose. A single, desperate choice into a legacy that would teach the world about the past while funding futures for those who needed hope most. Sarah closed her laptop and went to check on Mia, who was doing homework in her room. Real homework, for real college applications, because her future wasn't limited by money anymore. She kissed her daughter's head and whispered what she whispered every night. "We're lucky, baby. So impossibly lucky." And Mia, without looking up from her chemistry textbook, whispered back what she always whispered back. "I know, Mama. But you're the one who went to that estate sale. That was brave, too." Maybe it was. Or maybe it was just what desperate people did, took chances they couldn't afford because the alternative was giving up entirely. Either way, Sarah had gone to that estate sale, had spent money she didn't have, had brought home a broken ship that held secrets worth more than she could have imagined. And that choice, made in desperation and hope and stubborn refusal to accept that their lives couldn't change, had changed everything. The amber ship sailed on through time in its climate-controlled case, teaching new generations about the past, while Sarah Chen built futures for students who needed to believe that sometimes, impossibly, luck found the people who needed it most. And on quiet nights, when the house settled into sleep and the world outside their windows held peace instead of threat, Sarah would think about that morning at the estate sale, about the old woman who'd taken pity, about the $35 that became millions, about the broken ship that carried treasures through centuries to find her exactly when she'd needed finding most. She'd think about luck and timing and the mysterious mathematics that determined why some people suffered while others thrived. She'd think about the unfairness of it, the randomness, the fact that a different choice on a different morning would have meant a different life entirely. But mostly, she'd think about Mia's question, "Do you think we'll ever get lucky?" And feel grateful, impossibly grateful, that for once in their lives, the answer had been yes. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.